What's up, Bonnet Nation? I'm Jack Haskell, joined by Ryan Adio, Gavin Watson, and Ryan Lombardi, live from Washington, D.C., the site of the Atlantic 10 Men's Basketball Championship, as the number 8 seeded St. Bonaventure Bonnies take on the number 9 seeded Duquesne Dukes in second round tournament action. Gentlemen, how are we feeling?
Love that intro from you, Jack. Absolutely fired up.
Oh, yeah.
I'm ready to run through a brick wall.
I'm excited. I'm excited to be down here. Excited to get going into the basketball action here. Excited.
I think they should play that actually before the game. I feel that's a hype. They get them really worked up to fight these Dukes.
Hey, what can I say? Cut me a check and it can happen. But I digress. We're glad to be here. We had a 6-hour drive ahead of us today, but we've made it. We're in D.C. And before we begin, we want to give a special shout out and thank you to the Jandoli School of Communication and Dean Chimble for allowing us the opportunity to be here today and through this whole weekend.
Shout out Anna Richley for giving me and the rest of these guys the opportunity to cover this tournament because it is truly special and really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, as I mentioned, the Bonnies will take on the Dukes in the second round action, and the Bonnies are no stranger to the Duquesne Dukes this season. In the first game of the season, Duquesne defended their home court, winning 75-57. In the second game of this season series, the Bonnies defended the Riley Center on senior night, winning 70-63, and now we play them when it matters most, season on the line.
Season on the line, and we've seen the St. Bonaventure team face the Dukes in this Atlantic 10 tournament last year. The Dukes ended St. Bonaventure's run for the title in the semifinals in Brooklyn last year. So Noel Brown, one of the key players in that game, definitely has a sour taste in his mouth. This is his potential last game. He's definitely going to ride the momentum and use that enthusiasm of the unknown to kind of propel him forward because this could be his last game. Maybe they have some playoff hopes, but outside of this, it could be his final game.
Absolutely, Ryan. And Noel Brown, you mentioned from last year's Atlantic 10 tournament, so crucial to the run that the Bonnies made. I've said it to so many people. We don't get as far as we did without the production that Noel Brown gave us in that tournament last season.
Yeah, when players get into this tournament, it's a different ball game. They're different players. I'm so excited to see how Noel comes out tomorrow.
Absolutely. Now, looking ahead to this game, Duquesne, they've been storming. I mean, they had a less than stellar non-conference season, but they got into the conference season led by Trey Duquense.
Yeah.
And they're ready to make a run. Their Bonaventure stands in their way, but if they want to get through us, they're going to get through us.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you talk about it. They forgot about all that. The record, that's behind them. This is what's important. Blank slate. Everybody is starting this 0-0. So they got to leave that early season struggles behind them and get going here today.
Absolutely.
Or tomorrow, sorry.
And the Dukes losing Dake Mitchell 7 games in, their second leading scorer. He was a walk-on last season, earned a scholarship for his play at the beginning of this season, and Duquesne's been without him this entire season. Just as St. Bonaventure has struggled with their injuries. Both teams are banged up, but both teams are not ready for their seasons to end.
Definitely not. And I mean, Duquesne's riding the momentum of being in this tournament last year, winning this tournament last year. It's never easy to go up against the defending champs, obviously. It's a bit different of a Duquesne team that we see rather from last year when they made that run in the NCAA tournament. But it's still a culture. There's still a momentum ride. And Duquesne's going to be a tough team to beat for the Bonnies.
Yeah, and you mentioned Duquesne won it last year. They couldn't have done that without beating the Bonnies in the semifinals as well. So
I don't want to
familiar face.
I don't want to say that we were part of their run, but we were part
of the run.
Part of history.
I mean, everybody. I feel like everybody was picking against them too in the NCAA tournament. I think they were a 10 seed, and they had the 10-7 upset.
I didn't expect them to win. I mean, they were a bid steal. There were 5 bid steals in the March Madness tournament last year, and the Duquesne Dukes were one of them.
And I think even last year, I think it was so locked down that Dayton was going to get an at-large, even though they lost in the quarterfinals. They were one and done the A-10 tournament. They still got their automatic bid, but this year there's no set-in-stone automatic bid, at-large bid, I guess I should say, out of the Atlantic 10. So every single team, all 15, well, obviously now we have 3 teams eliminated, but the rest of the squad, they're all just searching for that way into the tournament because nobody's getting an at-large except for the exception of VCU, but they still have work to do in this tournament if they want a chance at an at-large.
Exactly, and we talked about VCU and Dayton's at-large chances on Afterthoughts, episode 3 out now. And
This kid, flipping shout-outs, man. My goodness.
Really gotta go deep in this conference tournament, whether it's making the finals or getting good wins, because they may not even get the at-large, even if they go deep enough in the finals. So that's just the bare minimum that they have to do, and whether they're going to do it or not, I don't want to say VCU will, because that is who's waiting for us should we beat the Duquesne Dukes, but I digress nonetheless.
And, hey, we handed VCU one of their losses earlier this season. I'm just saying.
Crazier things have happened, Ryan. VCU was 15-2 in this conference season, and one of those losses is the St. Bonaventure Bonnies.
Exactly.
Speaking of the Bonnies, let's look at our picks to click, brought to you by Afterthought Sports. Mr. Lombardi, take it away.
Are we doing impact players or
Pick to click, impact players, same thing.
I guess I've never heard of this pick to click segment.
Different name, same story.
Jack
Okay.
loves the whole pick to click. It's a
I've
rhyming
never,
thing, I
yeah,
think.
I've never heard this before,
the
but
rhymes. It's okay.
I think a player to watch. It's got to be the guy, Melvin Councils Jr. We saw him at Wagner last season, run in March. Obviously, he won his conference tournament with Wagner, and then they obviously went dancing into the NCAA tournament. They won the play-in game of the 16 seed, but obviously their season ended earlier than they thought. But then, Melvin transfers here, gets off to a great start. I think you mentioned in the car, every conference game he scored in double figures. Right. So Melvin is used to March. He is ready to play at this level, and this level of competition has been so good for him. We've seen him get hot. We've seen him score 20-plus points. He is just so athletic on the court, and I think he's just a different animal come March. I mean, if you want to be a dog, got to be a dog.
Absolutely. And Melvin Council, to his credit, it's one of the reasons why he's a captain. He is not back down through the Bonnie struggles in the conference season, even after every loss. You see him on his social media pages. He goes, "We good. We're March ready. We're waiting for March." Hourglass emoji. He doesn't want his season to end now.
Oh, and this could be it. There's the potential of the unknown, like I mentioned before, for Melvin. It could be his last college game if he doesn't decide to take that fifth year, but he's going to ride that momentum and just keep playing as hard as he can, because he is just a different animal come March.
Absolutely, and I cannot wait to see what he's going to do for St. Bonaventure now in the month of March.
Yeah.
Gavin, play to watch, pick to click, whatever you want to call it.
For me, it's No Belonga is my pick to watch.
Wow.
He's only averaging 2 points a game, 2 rebounds a game in his 13 minutes of average 13 minutes of action. However, we talked about it earlier. This is a banged up Bonnie squad. Noel Brown is the only big left for this team. So Noah Belonga is going to have to step up in a big way in the event that maybe Noel Brown gets in foul trouble early. Maybe he isn't having a great game. He's going to be the guy who has to step up if something happens to Noel.
Absolutely, and we even saw it in that Davidson game when Noel Brown picked up the 2 early fouls. Noah Belonga came into the game in the first half, finished with 7 points, 2 3-pointers, and we've seen flashes of greatness from Belonga all season long, but this is where it's make or break in the month of March in the conference tournament.
This is where it matters. This is where ball players show up.
What better time than now?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's going to need to show up. But I got a different player here. I have LeJay Jones. It just feels like when he does well, the team does well. I'm looking at 2 games here from earlier in the season against Loyola Chicago and George Washington, 2 pretty bad losses for the Bonnies. He had 2 points in both of those games. If he does bad, it might just be, I can't just be, the Melvin Council show. It can't just be the Noel Brown show. It's got to be a team effort. When he does well, the Bonnies do well. So I'm looking for him to show up tonight.
Ryan, I definitely agree with you there. Like, we saw St. Bonaventure play well against Duquesne earlier when they beat them in the Riley Center. LeJay Jones tied his career high of 24 points. He also knocked down 4 3-pointers in that one. So I totally agree. When LeJay kind of can set the tone for the game, because he takes a good amount of 3-pointers. If he knocks down his first or second 3-pointer, I think that kind of gets the rest of the team going.
I remember watching that game with Ryan from the student section, and he got to like his 4th 3 made, and I just looked at Ryan and I'm like, this kid is fantastic.
What's going on? Yeah, this is unbelievable. And you mentioned, the first game against Duquesne, he only had 11 points. So I think when you put up 24 points on a team, they're going to watch you a little bit extra. He might get more heavily guarded. I think he's still got to have to show up. And if he doesn't, at least he's taking the pressure off somebody else.
Absolutely. But the thing even about a player like LeJay Jones, he, to not sugarcoat it, had a poor offensive night in the last game of the
That's
conference
true.
season against Davidson, but still managed to bring down a career-high 12 rebounds.
Crazy.
Even when he's not on his par offensively, he still finds way to develop and to just make something happen for this Bonaventure squad.
Yeah.
And 6 of those being offensive rebounds, which is definitely going to be a thing for the Bonnies. I mean, when you look at the last time these teams faced off, I believe Duquesne pulled down 13 offensive rebounds, St. Bonaventure just 2. So definitely Bonaventure needs to get it down on the rebounding side and especially on the offensive rebounding side.
Absolutely. And a guy that can help with that, and my pick to click, the other captain, Noel Brown.
There you go.
You talk about most improved player. I know Reed Bailey is in our conference, but Noel Brown, compared to the player he was last season, just a complete 180.
And this is like a homecoming game for him.
Yeah,
He's from Virginia.
Playing in his home, Virginia, averaging 12.5 points, on the season, 5.5 rebounds, 1 assist, shooting 57% from the field. He's just been phenomenal. And the Bonnies are going to look to him in this game. And you even look at the last Davidson game, 2 early fouls within the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But then he came in at the start of the second half, 16 straight points.
Wow.
I mean, just phenomenal for the big man.
Yeah, he's always been that rock for the Bonnies, at least this season. I guess another player that when he does well, the whole team does well. I mean, when you have that guy who's your rock, if he's not putting up points, if he's getting locked down in the paint, it's just going to be a bad night for everybody.
Absolutely. And mentioning that we are in his hometown of D.C., you have to wonder, he's going to have family and friends in the crowd, and it just means more when you're playing in front of your loved ones.
I mean, it also adds a little bit of pressure as well, playing in front of your family and friends here at home. It will add some pressure to the game on top of the fact that it is a massive playoff game with your college career and potentially basketball career on the line here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Absolutely.
great point.
Now, should the Bonnies beat the Duquesne Dukes, knock on wood, of course.
I don't even want to talk about
Oh,
it.
yeah,
Let's not even.
one at a time.
One
Yeah.
game at
One
a
at
time.
a time.
We'll be right back in this spot here tomorrow.
If they beat the Dukes, we'll be here tomorrow.
We'll be here tomorrow.
We don't want to jinx anything quite yet, but should they beat the Duquesne Dukes, VCU Rams on the horizon, the number 1 seed in this conference tournament, co-conference champions with the George Mason Patriots.
Yeah.
Not a great position, but, I mean, like we've said, crazier things have happened in the month of March. I mean, you look at NC State in the ACC. They won 5 games in 5 days to win the ACC tournament, and then made it all the way to the Final Four.
And I mean, hey, we're 1-1 versus VCU as well. We won 1 against them, and they beat us. again,
Absolutely.
For 1. So going into it, it's anybody's game. They're both 500.
To your point, 3-1 in the last 2 years.
I mean, Bonnies don't have the Riley Center behind them this time, though, against VCU. That might change a few things. We got to get there first, though. We do.
Yeah, I don't know why we're talking about it this far in advance.
Well, you mentioned the Bonnies aren't in the Riley Center, but the Bonnies travel, and they come out in the masses. I mean, we're here. There's going to be a ton of alumni. I know a couple of fellow classmates will be there. The Bonaventure faithful are going to show out in full force to support their basketball team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely agree with that.
I mean, I'm looking at 6 conference losses on the road, though. It scares me a little bit. But everybody's away in this tournament. No one is really home here. I mean, maybe Noel Brown because he's from here, but no one is really home. I'm excited. I'm really excited, guys.
These guys aren't ready for their season to end, and personally, I'm not either.
I'm excited to see a Bonaventure run here. Hopefully, we'll make it to Sunday. That's the goal here.
Win, survive, advance.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, let's take a look at the overall Atlantic 10 tournament. Obviously, we had 3 games today. The first one with Fordham upsetting Rhode Island.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Rhode Island, just the talent that they have. I mean, Sebastian Thomas, David Fuchs, to mention a few. Sebastian Thomas being named all Atlantic 10 third team. I mean, really disappointing end of the season. Some have questioned whether or not it's Archie Miller's final game coaching the Rhode Island Rams, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, only time will tell. I mean, you just think about last season. I mean, just the switch up from Rhode Island. I mean, these are all different teams in this tournament. At least I think so. All these teams are much different than last season.
And I mean, that's the era of NIL that you're going to have new teams every year for every team potentially. So it's going to be about who can go out there and recruit the best each year, year in and year out.
Right.
Absolutely. And even Sebastian Thomas, a guy that left Rhode Island after his second year there to attend and play for the University of Albany last season, had a really good season there, and then came back to Rhode Island for his final collegiate season. Unfortunately, didn't end the way he was hoping, but nonetheless, credit to Fordham.
Yeah, I mean, credit to Fordham, and then they're taking on a George Washington team, which is, I think, very beatable tomorrow. It's the third game of the afternoon tomorrow, and I mean, in March, you play consecutive days, or you play every other day, and for them, when you go out there and you like Jackie Johnson scored 29 points, when you do that and have that kind of performance, when you go out there the next day, you got to feeling that hot hand. You have to be riding the momentum wave. So if you're George Washington, you got to be scared to face this Fordham team.
Absolutely, and I believe Jafet Mador also up there in
26 points.
26 points. I mean, they came in as the 15 seed. They're not ready to go home, and they proved it tonight.
Hey, nobody told the Fordham Rams they were the 15 seed. They thought they were number one, and they came in here. They proved it.
They played like it.
I'm very curious to see how tomorrow goes, because I think a lot of time in these conference tournaments, you start seeing it really depends on the officials' crew, but sometimes they let stuff play out because these teams have seen each other all year, but sometimes it turns into a ref show. Both of these teams, they went to the free throw line combined almost like 60 times in this game. Between Fordham and Rhode Island, but then you could also get a game where the whistles aren't really blowing, and there's a lot less fouls being called. They kind of let the kids play a little bit more.
A lot of outside factors that determine the outcome of the game, but nonetheless, I mean, basketball in March is always par to none.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Davidson took down Richmond 69-65. Another upset, the 13 over the 12, right?
Yeah, I mean, Davidson, credit them. They've had allegations all year of just being a one-man show with Reed Bailey, the most improved player of the Atlantic 10 Conference. He showed out for them, and now they go on to face a hot St. Louis team, which that's going to be a really good game.
That's an uphill battle, but this Davidson team is hot. It wasn't exactly an upset, 12 over 13, but it was still a really good game. Nonetheless.
And then LaSalle took down UMass final game in the Atlantic 10. And that kind of ends UMass's reign in the they didn't even do all too much, but LaSalle, the upset. I said it. I called it. I said LaSalle was moving on.
I'll say it because none of you will. Sayonara UMass. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. I mean, Frank Martin, there's questions if he'll come back to the Minutemen making the move to the MAC conference next season. He's already gone on record and saying, I can think of at least 6 or 7 guys that are ready for the season to just be done and enter the transfer portal. You've got to wonder, is he coming back if he's saying something like that? And even the switch to the conference tournament, he's getting up there in age as well, along with Fran Dunphy, who is going to continue his career for at least one more game with the LaSalle Explorers.
I mean, I don't think you see Martin stay with UMass. I mean, it's kind of a downgrade of division. They're going from the Atlantic 10, which I think is one of the top mid-majors, like up there with the Mountain West, and then you're going to the MAC. So like that's a low drop.
Who has fellow Little 3 rivalry Buffalo, who that's enough of a downgrade without saying anything else.
Come on.
You're losing over half your team potentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're going to have to restart on the recruiting trail.
Including your best player, Rasul Diggins, who will run out of eligibility this season.
And a lot of those players are going to leave because you're downgrading into a conference. Mm-hmm. That's not a discredit to the MAC, but it's a lower level of competition of players there. And when you go from the Atlantic 10 to the MAC, I think they only expect to move up in that reign.
Exactly, and especially with this being moved solely with football in mind, you've got to wonder what not only the men's basketball team, but every other sport for UMass is going to look like next season.
Yeah, it kind of just says something about their basketball team. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I'd say it says something about their athletic department as a whole.
That's true.
But I digress nonetheless.
We're talking basketball,
So, I mean, with LaSalle moving on, you get a little Philadelphia matchup. St. Joe's and LaSalle going at it tomorrow. They got the 7:30 tip. I think that's going to be a good one. I could see LaSalle moving on there and getting the upset over the 6th seed St. Joe's.
I don't think the players want their coaches' a season career to be over. I think they want to ride this one out. I think they have an upset here. Upset alert, maybe.
Absolutely. And
It is
especially a guy like Fran Dunphy, one of the most respected coaches in all of college basketball,
Right.
coming back to LaSalle to finish out his career, the place that he loves most. And you look at the St. Joseph squad, a ton of individual talent, but they've really struggled to put it all together this season.
Yeah, I think their biggest strong suit is the way they shoot the three-pointer. We saw they opened against St. Bonaventure. They were 0 for 7 to open that game against St. Bonaventure, and it almost felt like the Bonnies handed that game away to them. So I think if they start off slow, St. Joe's from beyond the arc, they could really put themselves in a hole, especially in March, because if LaSalle can just start knocking down some shots and St. Joe's gets off to a slow start, it's going to be hard to come back from.
Absolutely. Especially their star player, Eric Reynolds. If he starts out cold or goes the entire game cold, St. Joe's will be in trouble.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I believe that's all we have for tonight. Hopefully, knock on wood, we will be back here tomorrow night.
I think
For
regardless.
Ryan Adio, Gavin Watson, and Ryan Lombardi, thank you for watching. I'm Jack Haskell. Good night from Washington, D.C.